In the late 1950s, the world teetered on the edge of two revolutions, one of war and one of exploration. The Cold War had split the globe into rival ideologies, and the United States and the Soviet Union were in a silent race to dominate not just Earth, but space itself. While rockets soared and satellites blinked above the clouds, behind closed doors in Washington and Moscow, military minds were imagining far more dramatic gestures. In this atmosphere of tension, secrecy, and scientific ambition, a quiet proposal emerged, one so surreal it sounds fictional. The United States considered nuking the moon. The plan was real. It was called Project A119, and it wasn't a fringe idea floated by radicals. It was endorsed, budgeted, and researched by elite institutions, including the US Air Force and the Armor Research Foundation. One of the young physicists involved in the calculations, none other than Carl Sagan, who decades later would become a global icon for peaceful scientific exploration. But in 1958, he was working on a way to make a nuclear explosion visible from Earth, on the moon, as a demonstration of American superiority. The logic behind Project A119 stemmed from desperation. The Soviet Union had just launched Sputnik, the first artificial satellite, and with it, won the opening salvo of the space race. In response, American officials were humiliated. Public confidence was shaken. Within weeks, a flurry of urgent meetings took place across the Pentagon, the White House, and NASA's early forerunners. One bold idea took hold: to launch a nuclear weapon to the moon and detonate it on the visible side so that the flash could be seen from Earth. The goal wasn't destruction, it was symbolism. A cosmic fireworks show to declare American space dominance. It would be a visual message. We control space, and we're not afraid to prove it. But this was not science fiction. Technical reports were drawn up. Simulations were run. Launch vehicles were discussed. The weapon of choice was a W-25 warhead, small by nuclear standards, but powerful enough to create a visible explosion on the lunar surface. Unlike Earth, the moon has no atmosphere to muffle the blast or scatter debris, meaning the detonation would unfold differently without a fireball, but with a brilliant flash and radiation burst. Scientists calculated the ideal location for the detonation, near the moon's terminator, the line between lunar night and day, to ensure the blast would be visible from Earth with telescopes and possibly even with the naked eye, a spectacle in the sky meant to burn into memory. But as the project progressed, concerns began to mount. Some scientists warned that even a small nuclear explosion could send dust and radioactive material into lunar orbit, potentially contaminating future landing zones. Others feared public backlash. Even though the mission would be secret at first, leaks were always possible. And then there were the moral concerns. Using the moon, a celestial body tied to myth, poetry, and wonder, as a target for military posturing, risked turning exploration into weaponization. At the same time, the Soviet Union was rumored to be exploring similar concepts. Intelligence reports suggested that the USSR, too, was investigating a lunar detonation as part of their psychological warfare strategy. The race, it seemed, was not only about who would get to the moon first, but who would claim it as a symbol of power. In the end, Project A119 was cancelled. Officially, the reasons included risk, public optics, and shifting scientific priorities. Unofficially, the growing influence of civilian scientists, including the newly formed NASA, helped steer the national strategy away from nuclear displays and toward peaceful exploration. But the documents existed. In the 1990s, after decades of secrecy, Project A119 was finally revealed when biographers digging into Carl Sagan's early work discovered references to it in his academic records. It was no longer a rumor. It had happened, and it had nearly changed everything. Imagine a world where the first human footprint on the moon was not a moment of unity, but a site of past violence. Imagine the cultural symbolism, children looking up at the moon, not with curiosity, but with fear. What would that have done to public perception of space, of science? Would future missions have even happened? Or would the backlash have pushed space exploration into a corner for decades? Today, the moon remains unscarred by weapons, a place of shared human heritage. But Project A119 reminds us how close we came to choosing a different path. It raises questions that still matter. Should space remain neutral? Who decides what happens on other celestial bodies? And how often has military ambition come close to overriding science? While Project A119 never launched, its existence highlights a time when the line between exploration and domination was razor thin, and perhaps even more chilling. Many similar ideas didn't die. They simply evolved. The concept of military activity in space is alive and well today. From space-based missile systems to AI-powered satellites, the skies above us are becoming increasingly militarized. Treaties like the Outer Space Treaty of 1967 attempted to limit weapons in orbit, but many of those agreements lack teeth or clear enforcement. The spirit of Project A119, the impulse to weaponize wonder, still lingers. And that's why this story matters, not just as a what-if, but as a reminder that behind every milestone of progress is a shadow of ambition, that even the moon, serene and distant, was once considered a pawn in a geopolitical chess game. So the next time you gaze at the moon and feel inspired, also remember the plan they buried, the one that could have turned the moon into a monument to fear, a reminder that the biggest threats to space often come not from the void, but from ourselves.